Good evening, everybody. I rang off from having actually two different interviews today, and I have two coming up tomorrow. And I just want to make it clear I'm not doing this out of self-promotion interest. I don't chase after people to ask for interviews. These are people who want to talk with, and I don't talk with everybody who asks, but I am trying to get the word out, and so that's what I'm devoting myself to at the moment. Until we can get people up to speed enough that we can really grow the network of other people talking about it in this way, especially the human capital bond markets and the pay for success finance and the internet of bodies and how those intersect. So I just wound down the second interview, and there were, it was two interviews with people from probably pretty different political ends of the political spectrum, but both of whom were people that I think that share fundamental values, because we know that what's happening now with the this sort of global financial reset is fully bipartisan and global. And so at this point, like once we're picking paths, it's as I say, the scorched path of mechanization or the green path of life. And so I was talking with folks, and I think the commonality is that caring for children and caring for other beings, especially as we sort of face down what's coming with synthetic biology and nanotechnology. So I wanted to mention, I'm going to put this on, into iMovie and put it up on my YouTube page, but I got the best treat today. So last night I had a long conversation with someone, and we were sort of brainstorming. Everybody wants to know what to do. What do you do? What's the guidebook? What do we do next? And, people are struggling because it's been a year, right? And so we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're trying to figure out how to plan. Some people are in situations where they feel like it's hard for them to extract from, and make their own plan. I mean, I myself, my family is not necessarily on the same page as me. So this idea of just like walking away from existing obligations is not possible. And so everyone is in the process of trying to figure out what makes the most sense for them. And, I've sort of made my peace with that. I feel my role is to be part of to share the story as I see it, to give a lens to people, to give people tools to push back against this agenda, but from the right place and from a place within the historic context of what has happened, both with, our history of slavery and our history of, indigenous genocide and how that plays in with what's rolling out with the Smart City program. And so, but I don't just write, I write blogs and I do these interviews, but I also, if you follow me, that I try to do these little ritual interventions. And even if it's just me, say that I don't consent. And, I've done some, at different places in my city. And, I did quite a few when I was out in Salt Lake City as well. And, I had people get in touch with me by email. And a few weeks ago, two different, individuals had gotten in touch with me who were in the same geography. One was actually going to this town and one lived there, and they did not know each other, and they were both sort of spiritually grounded people and people interested in sort of energetic systems and doing the right thing. And they were like, is there something I can do here? And it happened to be in Eugene, Oregon, of all places. And I'm like, I know exactly what you can do in Eugene, Oregon. You can go to Concentric Sky, and you could do a revocation of consent at Concentric Sky, which is in Eugene, Oregon. And most people would have no idea what Concentric Sky is. And I'm sort of a total nerd that I do know. But I'm going to tell you, Concentric Sky is one of the key companies in this space of doing digital badging. And it is the digital badges that will be part of this sort of shift to pathways of lifelong learning that you never get off because you're always on the Pokemon Go skill collecting program so that you can, suck up to the AI and hope that you get this gig job. And, of course, the people who are building this company, I'm sure, are thinking that it's profound liberation and not that it's about like, earning tokens in your learning locker so that you can do a haptic robotic job pushing a button for an advanced manufacturing company halfway around the world, or that someone can sort of look at your the next gen LinkedIn profile that's, 300 skill codes, in badges where, like next week you have to self-finance like 10 more badges to keep up to keep up with the job because now the labor automation is speeding full speed ahead. And, so you're getting the badges and you're self-financing and you're going into debt, and it's all tracked on blockchain with your blockchain identity. So I'm going to add this into the in iMovie, like when I get this pulled, but I just want to sort of touch on. So Concentric Sky, it's in Eugene. They have a program called Program Mapper that is working with the California community colleges. So they're setting up badges, and it's no surprise that California is a leader in this. And clearly, this lockdown, dispossession, and the takeover of the public services is all part of the program, the, career, lifelong learning, cradle to career program. They're part of this Trusted Learner Network. And so the Trusted Learner Network, again, if AI is assigning you micro work halfway around the world, they want to trust who you are, trust who your avatar is, or, your cartoon character version of yourself. They have to trust. It's this blockchain version of trust. And so that's the learning lockers. They're a founding member of this industry consortium on learning engineering, or Icicle. And so really what we're going to see moving forward is a full-on push towards engineered learning. And what's coming is actually, I think, even down to neural pathways, this idea that they're going to use artificial intelligence to literally engineer your brain to certain skills that they want you to have. So this Learning Engineering Consortium, which is part of IEEE, and then they've done work. They've done work with the United Nations. So again, United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4 is all ICT education, individual communication technology. It has to be data because the data analytics are required for the impact investors. They need to know how many badges you earn so you can determine your wealth in this larger system. So they've worked for the World Bank. And we know the World Bank is funding smart impact bonds on blockchain. That is in Australia. They're called Bond I. And, of concern, before all the pandemic stuff started, I had really had a serious feeling that the first blockchain social impact bond would be in Australia, and it would be with Big Picture Learning. And Big Picture Learning is a franchise competency-based model that would be run on badging. They came out of Rhode Island. It was lifted up in partnership with Brown University, and the Gates Foundation funded it as one of their early small school initiatives. And this model of learning that is advanced by Big Picture is project-based, which sounds good, except really it's about child labor, and that half the time a child is in school, they're being outsourced, this is high school, to community-based learning. So, there are huge issues in my mind of child labor issues and predation on kids, because we know that is a concern in terms of who's vetted in terms of being with these children, but they're just outsourced and sort of set loose. And in a number of these Big Picture schools, I've heard that the kids don't even all get work assignments, so they just sort of sit around in a library. Only now, since lockdown, who knows exactly what that looks like. But they pitch it as though it's wonderful. You can dream, do your dream job at Big Picture, and be a music producer or something. But that is not how it's actually going to go. So Big Picture is now a global franchise. They're in, I think, maybe 7 different countries. And the first social impact bond in the United Kingdom for education is with Big Picture Learning. It's in Doncaster. So the Doncaster Big Picture Learning is the first social impact bond for education in the UK. And then Big Picture is also in Australia. And I believe it's New South Wales. There's a lot going on there around digital driver's licenses and social impact investing and digitization. So my feeling is, as they put these pilots together, that people should keep an eye out for smart impact bonds with the World Bank tied to UN Sustainable Development Goal, possibly coming up in Australia, in New South Wales in the not too distant future. So again, this is Concentric Sky is doing the badging with World Bank and with the United Nations. And so they're part of things called, Bright Hive, blockchain credentialing, game-based learning, because again, the gaming is all about the human capital analytics. They were a partner with Collective Shift, which is this learning ecosystem model where you don't have a bricks and mortar school, you're just doing Pokemon Go education. And that is the model that was advanced by the MacArthur Foundation. They created Collective Shift, which then moved over to LRNG, Cities of LRNG, which is, I guess, supposed to be learning, but it's a number of smart cities. Philadelphia is one, San Diego is one, I believe Dallas is one. And this is where you earn badges for skills, and they have a relationship with LinkedIn and Microsoft. So a lot of it is running through youth work programs and summer work programs for youth. But it is, again, getting kids conditioned to skill collection badging on the blockchain. The program, their product is called Badger, B-A-D-G-R, Badger, so Badger without the E on it. And that is an open credential badge standard, and it is verifiable. And, they have content that's coordinated with Khan Academy, which again, we were seeing the shift even back in the day when I was a parent towards, the class sizes are going up and up and up. Face-to-face instruction time is being reduced, and kids are being pushed into online learning platforms. So again, Oregon has a badge alliance. So if you're in Oregon, understand that is a model, that they already have a state level model for educational badging. And the thing that I wasn't familiar with about Oregon early on is that Intel has a major facility outside of Portland in Hillsboro, and there's a huge tech sector in Hillsboro, and I believe somewhere nearby on the coast of Oregon is where the trans-Pacific cables, the internet cables, actually physically come out of the ground into the state of Oregon. And so there's a lot of, tech that is centered there because of the immediate connection to these internet cables. And once you understand, once I understood about Intel and the human capital analytics and the badging, then that made a lot more sense to me why the lockdown measures and a lot of the sort of neoliberalism was happening. Ostensibly, you would think Portland would be more open-minded, but that the human capital data analytics is being woven in Oregon, specifically in Eugene and in the larger Portland area. So, again, let's see, they're also partnered with the National Institutes of Health. So I'm seeing this, and NASA and the National Science Foundation. And so this is something I spoke about on a couple interviews recently this week about the daily pass passports, the QR code passports that are rolling out in Los Angeles. And if those are accepted, probably likely will be more widely adopted in school districts, is the creation of digital identity systems with interoperable data, where your health data starts to integrate with your education data. Because we know that within the Global Education Futures Agenda that they have mapped in their foresight document, that they were already talking about student genetic passports. And so, in this whole program of, population level bioengineering is grounded in eugenics. And so if they start to essentially say, based on your genomic profile or based on your predictive profiling of your geography, where you're born, your families, we will put you onto these pathways in which you're only going to be able to access certain professions, that is a concern. And so again, I've had people ask me, do you think the guy at Concentric's knows where this is going? And so for me, I keep asking, how could someone who's doing badging and pushing trusted credentials and blockchain credentials not know about globalization 4.0? How can people in ostensibly an academic community, a progressive community, not understand that as harmful as globalization has been for the working class, for working class people, to outsource both manual labor and increasingly platform-based labor, that now we're moving to haptic robotic labor with no worker protections, right? And, and this is something I speak to a little bit, on the conservative side. People think that we're going to protect our, somehow contain our national borders, and that we will be protecting workers, in whatever country that you're in. But the reality is with this haptic robotics, and once they can start to geofence people based on their health status or their medical status, their injection status, their bioengineering status, that this idea of borders is really, really fluid in terms of what is coming with this globalization through remote robotics and platform-based work that, may even essentially start involving avatars and synthetic people or synthetic versions of yourself. It's kind of crazy to think that we even have to talk that way, but I think that we need to talk that way. And so, in these two interviews I gave today, which again, along the political spectrum is we need to actually stand for children at this point. Adults need to wake up and understand what is going on with these badging programs, what is going on not only with the chase to collect the badges, but this idea that ultimately they will be recreated as investment markets, whether that is through the public education system or through some sort of ongoing income sharing agreement where you have to continue to have your wages garnished in order exchange to chase the next skill that's being enforced on you. That is what is coming. So the beautiful thing that happened, so I had a conversation last night, because everyone's like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, I show up and I revoke consent, and in doing that, I think I empower other people. And I do feel like increasingly that this is something about a larger energetic system of throwing off these oppressive forces, but not strictly from a place of anger and finger pointing at people who are still enchanted in the system, but like from a place of love, because my gosh, people, like if what we're this thing that we're going down to is digital slavery, it's coming after everyone. And I have to say, I appreciated tonight, I was talking about it as the what happened to indigenous people being put onto reservations, right, being removed from their economic and cultural practices and their land, their ancestral lands, into these isolating areas where they were then state dependents, and then they could be manipulated in that way. And the Smart City Agenda 21, like, you know, that is what is going to be coming with us. Like, we're going to all be in the place of the Lakota. And, you know, I've been talking with people. I feel like it's almost like we need to spend some time thinking about the ghost dance, you know, and this empire, and how it's morphing into a digital empire, and how they are pulling us into it and containing us like it's an enclosure increasingly of at the cellular level. It's a colonization project at the cellular level. And I have to say, like, I really appreciated that the person I was speaking with said that really helps me visualize it, right? So we need to understand what's happening within this historic context. So anyway, I was having a nice conversation with someone last night, and we were trying to envision, like, how can we brainstorm a way to both meaningfully connect people, because, you know, it's a year in, and who knew that I would end up having so many connections around the world around these issues, but it has happened. And, you know, ostensibly it would you know, I keep waiting. It would be great if we could all just, you know, like be together in one physical space. But barring that, like I have said earlier, that I feel like we're connected through the water. We're connected through the water cycles and through nature and through these energetic systems. And that if there was some place that we could represent in an artistic way or an energetic way, our assertions of non-consent and our assertions for, you know, what we wanted in terms of an affirmation of natural life, not synthetic life, but natural life. And you know, if you're on my Facebook, you know, I had some really good conversations today, and Twitter as well, about if we had a manifesto of life, like what would we put in it? What would that include? So if we had some rituals of both standing up to this power, witnessing it, acknowledging it, looking at the badging, looking at these things and saying, no, we're not doing this in an aggressive state, but we're simply flat out turning our back on this program, and we are going another path. So, but that's a creative process. That's a collective process. And, you know, today putting some of these questions out and getting these amazing responses back, like it felt really good. And so, you know, so we had this conversation, and then, you know, again, we had at the soup meeting last week, you know, one of these people who was going to Eugene, like we talked, and it turns out these two people who had emailed me independently, who knew nothing of each other, got together in Eugene today, and they did one of these small ceremonies of non-consent outside Concentric Sky, which was pretty incredible. And then they emailed me this clip, which at the end, I will put this at the end, it's just 30 seconds. And, you know, but to me, it's powerful because, you know, I've said in these other, another of the videos of me going out to the, you know, John Coltrane house and seeing, you know, this in the window, you know, a thought creates a million vibrations and they all go back to God, you know, this energetic, musical, beautiful thing. And so, you know, the idea of both having these various visual, like not visual, but you know, virtual conversations with people, whether it's through Skype, whether it's through Twitter, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's on, you know, doing these online interviews and then doing these lives, that then people can translate that into physical places and actual connections to real people. And together, I think we are still really powerful, you know. And somebody said today, you know, I'm really scared about this happening. And I said, you know, nobody wants this. 99.8% of the world would not want this to happen. They would not want it to happen if they knew. And, you know, Mark Benioff says, you know, come at me with all your aggression you got. Like, that's what I like. I like you to come at me with aggression. I'm like, you know what? We can stand in our power, and we can be firm, and we can be grounded in the sacred, and we can step out and we can make something different. I truly believe that it's not going to end the way they think it's going to end. But we have to be brave. We have to be brave for each other. And I think that we can strengthen each other, even if it's through these stupid digital formats. You know, it was beautiful, like at the end of the day today, to get this clip and to see this very gentle 30 seconds outside Concentric Sky. It was a gift, right? Like we had talked about it the night before. What would this be? And then all throughout the day, we were imagining what it could be. And then it came. Then it was there. 4 o'clock it came, and I have their permission to share it. So I'm going to share it with you after this. I'm just going to have to throw this in iMovie, and I'll put the some of the information about Concentric Sky in there. But we're not their badges. We're not their skills. Our kids are not their skills. The world that we live in isn't going to be badged. We don't want to like have sensors so that we can prove that we can climb a tree or that we can swim in an ocean. Like, we're not doing those badges. We're not. And we're not going to buy the lie that somehow if we live on blockchain that we're going to be liberated, that living in their synthetic web of spatial reality, mixed reality video game is something that we aspire to. We're not going to do it. So
here that commodifies our children, families, and broader community as data bits. We stand against the destruction of our shared humanity that uplifts our individual and collective selves. We revoke our consent to be taken into a system of control, manipulation, and disempowerment for the benefit of the corporate capitalist agenda. We resist this takeover. We persist in a shared vision of love, compassion, kindness, and collaboration for the good of all.